Here I have a couple more decks from the modified legacy era of the Star Wars CCG. You can check the description of this video for some details on the deck building context of these. But I got a light side on the right, dark side on the left. Both are focused on Tatooine. And we'll take a look at the Tatooine Shuttles first. So this was no objective, no double-sided purple objective card in this one. This was the combat response, I should say careful planning. Combat response is the dark side one. So the Tatooine system, these three effects, so getting matching ships, getting generals, and being able to pull cards from your used pile when you deploy characters, as well as deploying a farm or the starting effects. Plus getting this Tatooine site here. The main reason for this Tatooine site is a 2-0, so no icons for the dark side, and I can deploy Shmi from the reserve deck. She lets me get C-3PO, who lets me recycle cards back into my deck. So a key part of this deck is Luke's T-16 with Luke on board, and being able to cause the opponent to have to use one force to draw a card from force piles. Pretty intense. Basically, they can only draw half of what they want to, so if he's piloting a T-16 alone, and I got a few other T-16s in there, they can move as a react, which is nice if I need to get people someplace fast. Here's the kind of the key driving force behind the deck. This was before my friend and I played with a lot of the grabber shields or effects, so I was expecting to get a few plays of this in, but if somebody knows the deck's coming, this is probably going to be the interrupt they're going to grab. But being able to add a battle destiny when your shuttle or shuttle vehicle's in battle is pretty nice. And it's a used interrupt destiny 4. A weakness of this deck is definitely the space. I wanted to cram a couple shuttles in there, and they're not very combat effective. But I got those 2 shuttles in there. This lets me pull effects. It's kind of a slow deck, so this reduces force drains at some locations if you really get hammered for a big force drain. Key card there is the retrieval. And again, this one's, because it's kind of a weak space deck, this one's hard to pull off, but by stacking the Tatooine system, hopefully the opponent won't want to come there if you can get a bunch of ships, and being able to add battle destinies at related sites. But yeah, space is definitely the weak part of this deck. My friend who I played with never used a ton of space, except for maybe in like a TIE fighter deck, but that was probably part of the motivation behind this. But being able to pull scouts, Maydeen does. There's a few generals in here. This is actually an uncommon that I put in the spot of rare. It should be Colonel Kraken. This is General Blissex, but he's much easier to get my hands on. And a few scouts here, useful scouts that can all be pulled. Power 8 isn't bad for a deploy of only 5. And these guys add to your battle destiny where you have a T-16, so I just thought it was kind of funny to have a incom engineer adding 2 to my total battle destiny, and then the interrupt adding 1 battle destiny. So I'm not sure what the average destiny of this deck is, probably somewhere in the 3 to 4 range. So you're adding 5 to your total battle destiny just with shuttles, which at the very least, if not super competitive, was at least fun. So being able to get out a couple battlegrounds, that's the farm you get with the starting effect. That's the one that's kind of the big deal to get out with the Mindful of the Future. So I can park Luke there and force the opponent to either come to him or kind of have a miserable day. And but C-3PO is designed to help with that too, trying to get the sites. Also, the used pile pulls really help. And I kind of have more my combat-oriented land guys here. So a lot of permanent weapon people. Got to make sure you get a Leia and a Chewie in there. And then, now that I think about it, I'm not sure if I have a Lando in this deck, which I'm not sure why that is. That would have made sense with the pulling, so who knows, maybe I'll go back and fix that if there's no Lando in here, because I don't recall seeing one. But with this effect, it makes sense to put a Lando in there. Plus, he adds a battle destiny on Tatooine. Wonder what my oversight there was. But yeah, so not that I edit these decks very much anymore. We don't really play this format, but that was an interesting thing to find out on video. So that was the light side deck, Tatooine oriented. Hopefully, I feel like it's a pretty strong deck if I can hold space. So if opponent doesn't have a ton of space and I can get maybe 3 starfighters there, kind of a lot to commit, but I feel like on Tatooine I'd be pretty formidable. And being able to draw a couple Battle Destinies isn't bad. Of course, who knows what the opponent's doing. So this, on the other hand, is a newer objective, where you're trying to occupy Tatooine sites of the Dark Jedi, except this one is actually, I made it ATST oriented. So this one I thought was nice. If an Imperial is there, you may activate one force once per turn. And then I start with the Emperor. So this starting effect allows you to deploy the Emperor. Problem is it lets the light side go first. But the ATST effect, which works kind of like squadron assignments, where you can reveal a Biker Scout and go get an ATST, or I should say reveal an Endor Imperial pilot and then go get an ATST, or vice versa. The deck's all about Imperial, so I do like this card. And this one's real nice for weapons. So ATSTs are the main force of this deck, being able to move as a react. So I got quite a few of them in there. Not all of them can move as a react. I think Tempest Scout 4 can. It's a bit more powerful, but can't move as a react. So I kind of like to put that one with the Emperor. And then a lot of useful pilots for the ATSTs. And the cannons, that's the main force on the ground there. So they can target for free, and then if I hit, they can lose 2 force to make them lost. So that can really add up if I'm just taking out scrubs and getting down to one guy left and winning the battle. With a couple ATSTs versus one guy, that's not going to end well for the light side. So a couple of cannons, only 3, but I can recycle them to my used pile. And then a couple of pilots to help out with piloting those speeder bikes. I shouldn't say speeder bikes. They are speeder bike pilots, but the ATSTs. And then, just like the light side deck I just showed you, this one, the space is a little bit suspect. So these aren't terribly powerful. They don't really have any interrupts that help them out, but any Starship Cannon can deploy aboard them. So I got 4 of those, and the goal is just to try to hold the Tatooine system, and ideally getting this guy up in space with another Biker Scout there, kind of making it hopefully too much of a headache for the light side to come up there, but who knows what you're playing against. Again, a lot of these decks were built with the expectation that I wouldn't be facing heavy space decks. But these cannons can actually deploy with high destinies. They have, when I recycle them, used on my landing crafts. And a Vader for some support. This one's nice. I gotta use a lot of force in battle, so by being able to draw destiny and activate that force, I can get a few more shots in with my ATST cannons, since they can fire repeatedly for quite a bit of force. And I have 3 of those because I want to make sure I get the force in there. And this is real nice to be able to move cards for free as a react. It's not even technically a react. This card seems pretty bonkers. A Destiny 6 used interrupt that basically forces the opponent to pay for you to move your card. And it doesn't say react, so I don't think it can be canceled by things that cancel reacts. I can kind of see why, if I understand that right, I can kind of see why the game moved away from cards like that when they did a reset. So there's a lot of sites in this one. The goal is to kind of spread out and take advantage of moving around with the high land speed of the ATSTs and maybe getting a Tatooine occupation down, which is right here. And again, that's really dependent on being able to hold the Tatooine system. And something for the Emperor, a few things for the Emperor, so a couple senses to be able to cancel. And if he gets killed the first turn, it's not a huge deal. But I mean, depending on the situation, if somebody deploys to attack the Emperor first turn, I can activate 1 force a turn, and then deploy this guy as a react on the opponent's first turn. That'd be kind of an interesting thing to see happen. And if I get a really lucky hand, to start out with, heavy fire zone, ATST can, and then I can use that to deploy an ATST cannon. If I happen to have that combat readiness in my hand, I can draw Destiny to activate force and then start wailing away on somebody with an ATST. Pretty unlikely, but that would be a heck of an ambush for somebody thinking they're getting a drop on the Emperor. So maybe a bit of a gimmick this deck is, but I wanted to use ATSTs in something, and I really just couldn't swing them into the Endor deck where they made the most sense. It just seemed like that one was kind of using biker scouts more as dismounted troopers. But yeah, this one I have had some fun with it. I think I lost a close game and then won a big one with a lot of the ATST killings. So I have good memories with it, and a lot of shooting the ATST cannons, which is, in my opinion, one of the cooler sound effects in Star Wars. So that's it for these two decks. I'll have a couple more coming up in a subsequent video. I hope you enjoyed viewing these. Be sure to check out the links in the description below and the other videos I have, mostly of Star Wars CCG sealed product and collections that I buy every now and then. Thanks again. Have a good one.